Have you ever wondered about the whispers in the desert wind, the shadows that dance just beyond the firelight? What happens when a people, in their fear of the unknown, seek power from forces they cannot comprehend? Could it be that the greatest monster we can ever face is the one we willingly invite into our own lives? This is the story of a proud Arabian tribe, their fatal pact with the unseen world, and the terrifying entity that answered their call. The time was the Jahiliyyah, the age of pre-Islamic ignorance. The geography was the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Arabian desert, a landscape of breathtaking desolation. By day, the sun was a merciless hammer, beating down on endless dunes of shifting sand. But by night, the world transformed. The sky became a velvet blanket studded with 1,000,000 brilliant stars, and the air grew cool, carrying with it the secrets and superstitions of the ancient land. In this world lived the Bedouin tribes, a people of fierce honor, profound poetic sensibility, and a deep-seated spiritual anxiety. They were masters of survival, their lives governed by the harsh laws of the desert and the unwritten codes of tribal loyalty. Their culture was a complex tapestry of paganism. They worshipped stone idols and celestial bodies. But their most immediate and visceral fear was reserved for the Jinn. They believed these beings of smokeless fire inhabited the desolate places of the earth, possessing immense power to help or to harm. In a state of fragile stability, they navigated their lives by appeasing these unseen forces, offering them sacrifices and invoking their names for protection when traveling through the lonely valleys at night. But amidst their cultural splendor and their raw pride, a spiritual disease had taken root. Their fear of the Jinn had begun to eclipse their reverence for a higher, unseen God. They were seeking refuge in the creation instead of the Creator. And soon, the first signs that their misguided pact was about to be answered by a power far more terrible than they could ever imagine would appear. The divine sign that marked the beginning of their end was not a storm in the sky, but a presence in the sand. A new entity began to make itself known, a being of immense power and malevolence, a Marid, one of the most powerful and arrogant classes of Jinn. This was a direct consequence of their spiritual error, a trial permitted by God to expose the folly of their ways. The Qur'an itself warns of the Jinn's nature, a truth that this tribe was about to experience firsthand. Indeed, he, Satan, and his tribe see you from where you do not see them. Qur'an, Surah Al-A'raf, 7:27. The initial warnings were subtle, like a cold dread on a hot day. Livestock would be found dead in the morning with no visible wounds. Strange guttural whispers would be carried on the wind, seeming to come from every direction at once. Possessions would vanish from inside sealed tents. The tribe reacted with a mixture of terror and arrogant familiarity. This was the world they knew. Their reaction was not to turn to a higher power, but to double down on their ancient superstitions. Their soothsayers and shamans, men who claimed to have pacts with the Jinn, performed elaborate rituals, spilling the blood of their best camels as offerings, chanting incantations to placate the unseen entity. They believed they could negotiate with this power, that they could control it. The tension escalated as the Marid's presence grew bolder. It was no longer content with whispers and pranks. Its terror became physical. Travelers reported seeing a towering pillar of black smoke moving across the dunes against the wind. At night, monstrous shifting shapes would appear just beyond the light of the campfires, their eyes glowing like hot coals. The people began to be afflicted by a creeping madness, gripped by paranoia and terrifying nightmares. The authentic traditions passed down from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, speak the various forms these beings can take, a reality this tribe was now facing. It has been narrated through sound chains that the jinn are of different types. The jinn are of three types: a type that has wings, and they fly through the air; a type that are snakes and dogs; and a type that stops for a rest, then resumes its journey. Authenticated by Al-Hakim and others. This Marid seemed to be a master of all forms, a shape-shifting terror that was slowly and systematically dismantling their sanity. Their shamanic rituals only seemed to make it stronger, its laughter echoing in the canyons after every failed attempt to appease it. And then came the final unmistakable sign of its absolute dominance, a direct challenge that would push the entire tribe into a state of utter, hopeless despair. The final warning came not from a human tongue, but from the very air around them. One night, as the tribe huddled in fear within their tents, a booming, disembodied voice echoed through the entire camp, a voice that seemed to vibrate in their very bones. It was the Marid, and it was done playing games. It made a simple, terrifying demand: abandon their chief idol, the symbol of their tribal power, and make a great sacrifice in its name alone, acknowledging it as their sole protector and master. This was the final call to commit ultimate shirk, the unforgivable sin of associating partners with God. The tribe was plunged into a state of absolute terror and despair. At this moment, a lone voice of reason emerged. An old, wise man, a Hanif, who had rejected the idol worship of his people and held to the pure monotheistic faith of Abraham, stood before the tribal elders. "You are fools," he cried, his voice trembling with righteous anger. "Can you not see? You sought refuge in these creatures, and they have only increased you in terror. Abandon these idols and this demon. Turn to the one true God, the Lord of all creation. Seek refuge in Him alone." But his words were drowned out by their fear. The punishment for their spiritual blindness was their final, fatal choice. They chose the monster they could hear over the God they refused to acknowledge. They performed the great sacrifice as the Marid had demanded. The visceral punishment came in the moments that followed. As the blood of the sacrifice soaked into the sand, the booming laughter of the Marid echoed once more, a sound of pure, triumphant evil. It had not been appeased. It had been empowered by their act of worship to it. The aftermath was chaos. The Marid, now their acknowledged master, unleashed its full terror upon them. It drove them mad with horrifying illusions, snatched children from their mothers' arms, and turned the tribe against itself in a frenzy of paranoia and violence. They were not destroyed by a physical blow, but were utterly broken from within. They scattered into the desert, a tribe of lunatics and fugitives, their wealth abandoned, their honor shattered, their story a whispered cautionary tale for other tribes. Their fate was a direct and horrifying fulfillment of the divine law they had ignored. And there were men from mankind who sought refuge in men from the jinn. So they, the jinn, increased them in arrogance and burden. Qur'an, Surah Al-Jinn 72:6. And so ended a proud tribe, not by the sword of a rival, but by the very supernatural forces they had revered, forgotten by history, but never by Allah. Why is a story like this, a tale from the pre-Islamic age of ignorance, so important because it is a timeless allegory for one of the most dangerous spiritual mistakes a human being can make: seeking power, protection, or refuge from any source other than the Creator. It is a powerful illustration of the danger of shirk. In our modern world, we may not sacrifice camels to desert demons, but the principle remains. Humanity's search for power and protection from forbidden sources is more rampant than ever. We see it in the rising popularity of astrology, tarot cards, and communication with spirit guides, all forms of seeking knowledge and help from the unseen outside the bounds of divine revelation. We see it in the dark corners of the occult, in rituals that promise wealth and power in exchange for loyalty to demonic entities. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, issued a stark and unambiguous warning against such practices. Whoever goes to a fortune teller or a soothsayer and believes what he says has disbelieved in what was revealed to Muhammad. Musnad Ahmad, authenticated by Al-Albani. The fear that drove the ancient tribe, the fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control, is the same fear that drives people today. They seek a shortcut, a secret knowledge, a hidden power to navigate the uncertainties of life, forgetting that the ultimate power and the ultimate security lie only with God. The echoes of that tribe's downfall resonate in the empty promises of every modern-day soothsayer and every spiritual practice that invokes unknown entities. But the story does not end in despair, for within the narrative of the tribe's destruction lies the key to our own salvation. The divine mercy in this story is not for the tribe that persisted in their sin, but in the divine alternative that was always available to them and is available to us. The lone Hanif, who called them to the worship of the one true God, represented the path of hope. He was saved because his refuge was in God alone. The spiritual advice embedded in this terrifying tale is the core of Islamic belief. The only true protection, the only real power, comes from seeking refuge in Allah. Islam did not just forbid the old pagan practices, it replaced them with something infinitely more powerful and pure. It gave us the practice of isti'adha, seeking refuge in God. It armed us with the divine words of the Qur'an. We have been given the ultimate spiritual shield in the final 2 chapters of the Qur'an, the Mu'awwidhatain, which were revealed specifically for this purpose. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of daybreak from the evil of that which He created. Qur'an, Surah Al-Falaq, 113, 1-2. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord of mankind, the sovereign of mankind, the God of mankind, from the evil of the retreating whisperer. Qur'an, Surah An-Nas, 114, 1-4. The hope is this: we do not have to negotiate with the darkness. We do not have to appease it. We have been given the authority, through the words of our Creator, to command it to flee. The story of the terrorized tribe is a stark choice laid before us. Will we, in our moments of fear and uncertainty, turn to the weak, created, and often malevolent forces of the unseen world? Or will we turn to the all-powerful, all-merciful Lord of daybreak, the King of mankind, and find perfect, absolute security in Him alone?